Hey, what's up guys? It's Mr. Chris here with DJ's 2016 Ford Fusion. We're gonna be taking his 4-inch radio out and putting in an 8-inch Sync 3 upgrade. And we're actually getting ready to launch our mobile installation service. So this is gonna be a kind of a good run with the customer's vehicle here. So let's get started on the install. All right, so to begin in here, we're gonna have to remove the shifter trim, the silver radio bezel trim all the way around here. You don't need a lot of tools, just a couple of panel tools, a 7mm socket, and I like to have a magnet around just in case. And this customer has a Bluetooth dongle as well as a navigation in here, and we're actually not gonna need to use these once we do the upgrade. And starting from this little bezel here, you can stick your panel tool, any of the little gaps that you have around this bezel. And when you get to this rear section, it's very thin. There you go. So you see right here, it's a real thin piece of plastic. So just kind of be a little careful when you're taking that piece out. Once that black piece is gone, we can remove this rear silver trim. Same way, just popping it up. Set that aside. And now this whole bezel can be removed. All right, we'll set this aside. And we will be reusing those pieces, so keep them nice. Now, once you have your bezel removed, on the inside of this little hole here, you have a 7mm, one on either side. And now we can remove our radio. All right, once you pop your bezel down, you have 2 wiring harnesses here, and you need to remove. You just press the centers down on them, you can pull those straight up. All right, and there you have your old radio bezel. You can set this aside, you're not gonna be using this anymore. Back here, you're gonna need to remove your radio module and your screen. So we can pull the 7mm screws out. And your screen should pop right out. On your screen, you have a lever style plug. So you press the center in, and you can slide that lever over, and that'll push your connector right out of there. And we'll pull this guy out and unplug all of the connectors on the back side of this module. We'll set that aside. We're going to need to run our new harness, our T-harness, down to where the sync module is. We're going to be pulling out the sync module, so it's going to be actually right down in that corner right here, and it's going to be fed straight down. To access that, we're going to have to pull our side panel off here. And when we pull our side panel off, we'll take this trim off as well, because we need to run a couple wires to our media hub, which is inside the center console. So we're gonna be swapping that out as well. So in order to pull this panel, you need to grab it and pull towards your door. There's just a bunch of clips in there that you're gonna pop free. Just kind of work your way down a little bit. And this side panel up here also needs to come off. All right, so once you pop your panel off, you don't have to remove it completely. You can just kind of bend it out of the way. The module you're looking for is actually right here, and you should be able to pull it straight out of there. It may put up a little bit of a fight. There we go. And once you have this free, you can unplug your media hub connection, and you can release another little lever style clip here. Press the center, slide to remove, pop that out. And then there's a clip right on the side. If you got a panel tool, pop that clip off, and then we can remove this whole module, the sync module, and we won't be using that again. All right, so included in your kit, you're gonna have a few wiring harnesses here. The one that we're gonna need right now is this big main one. It has a yellow RCA thing here, so you can notify, or you can tell which harness you're trying to grab here, but it's gonna have this long cable here with a gray plug on it. This needs to run to your media hub, that new hub that you're gonna swap out in your center console, as well as this USB connection. All right, so that long USB connection and the gray plug that's on your main harness here, these two ends you're gonna have to run back down through the side and rear of your radial cavity here. You're gonna wanna drop it down, run back towards your center console, because these are going to plug into your new media hub. So you're gonna need to drop these down, and from underneath where you unplugged your sync module, you're gonna get that wiring harness, and you're gonna wanna run that up so you can plug it into your main harness here. You're gonna wanna come over and behind this plastic support here, and basically when you have all of this taken apart, you'll see the opening that you're trying to get into. All right, you can pull that through. All right, and when you get it to around here, that should be plenty. And now we can run our harness that was plugged into our module, and we'll run that up in the same direction. All right, once you get your module plug pulled up through your radial cavity, you can grab your harness that's included with your kit and slide it on there. And you can see how this lever is in the sideways position here. It's kind of aiming up. When you start to push it in there, see how that lever just pulls that together? That's how you know you made a good connection. Now, if this lever was in this position and you tried to push it on there, you would not make a good connection. So make sure that lever is in the upwards or sideways position when you try to stick this connector on there. All right, and now this plug with the yellow RCA on it, you can plug that into the smaller lever connector that you removed earlier. And same way, you just push that connector over all the way to the side, and then when you pull on that lever, it'll guide that plug right into place. All right, working on the side here, you see we got our new media hub wires. You're gonna wanna run this down the side, basically running it in between your center console and the carpet. And you're gonna run it all the way down till you get to this area right here. It's kind of right behind the cup holder area. So the media hub is located in your center console, right next to your cigarette lighter in here. So to get that up, I'm gonna grab your pry tool, and it should come out really easy actually. And once you have your old media hub out, it's gonna be these two clips here. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. And you're just gonna lift up on either side and pull that plug out. And your USB will pop out of there. Now we can stuff this back in to that hole there. We're not going to use that anymore, and we're not going to use this old shroud anymore, or that old bezel. Depending on the year of your vehicle, you may or may not have a insert piece. So this is what the new media hub looks like. Because this is the larger hole here, we have a bezel that we're going to be using. All right, so you're going to want to grab your media hub wires, and in this cavity here, if you run this straight towards the center, you'll actually see your media hub wires right there. All you got to do is pull that up and plug that in. You'll grab your new media hub, slide it in the bezel. There's only one way that this can go in because it's kind of notched. So if it doesn't fit, don't force it, flip it over, try the other way, it should snap into place. Now we can plug this in. And it should snap right in. There you go. All right, now that we got our wires ran, we can snap our panel back on. All right, now we're left with two harnesses here. One is our GPS antenna. We'll set that aside for now. And the other one is our climate control connections for our new bezel. And we need to pin 3 wires on this climate control plug here. So on the harness here, you have numbers right underneath the pins. So this one, kind of hard to see, but it says 17. This is that top last wire. If you jump down to that next row down here, you'll see this one says 18. So there's one that we need to put our pin in. And on the top, this wire right here says 15 on it. It's gonna be this, 13, and this one right here, 14. So 13, 14, and 18 are where we're gonna stick these pins in. Once you identify your pins, where you're gonna be pinning your harness, you're gonna need to release this lock here. Just by kind of separating the sides and pulling up on it. And that way it'll give you access to stick these pins in there and have them lock into place. So this one is 13. All right, now that we have our pins pushed into their corresponding holes, 13, 14, and 18, we can go ahead and clip our little locking connector piece back on, and this part is done. Now that your pins are all pinned and your harness is ready to go, you can grab the other climate control harness here, and we can plug these together just like that. And now our climate control wires are pretty much good to go to be plugged into the new bezel. Depending on your kit, you may have to modify this harness here. Once we get to that section, I'll show you what needs to be modified, if it does need to be modified. But for our last harness here, or our last connection, we have a GPS antenna. And all I did was put some double-sided tape on our antenna. I'm gonna pull the AC vent out with these 4 7mm screws, and I'm gonna stick this right on top of the AC vent, and then I'm gonna put the AC vent back in there. So this, a lot of people like to have it in the center of their dash or something. As long as it's not covered by metal, it'll work fine. So sticking it on the top of your AC vent, it'll see the sky perfectly fine right through your dash because there's no metal right up on top here. So let's pull that off now. This should pull straight out of there. Yep, just like that. So right here's your AC vent. Right on the top of this is where we're gonna stick this GPS antenna. So we went ahead and cleaned up the top of this AC vent with some alcohol, and all we have to do is stick our antenna up there now. All right, that's nice and tight in there, and now we can fish our antenna line into the radio cavity. Obviously we don't need this much antenna line, so we're gonna loop this up and zip tie it. And now we can replace our AC vent. Now we can grab our new screen. We can start plugging our connections in. So we'll grab our media hub connection here. Plug this guy in. We will plug our GPS antenna in. It's right up on top here. We'll go and plug in our main connection here. And actually, if you notice, depending on your vehicle, you may need to modify this harness slightly. You have 3 tabs here, and this one in the center, you can see it's going to interfere with our connection here. So this will have to chop that center tab off. And easiest way to do that is grabbing some flush cuts. You can also do this with a little razor blade. It doesn't take much. But once you cut that flush, you should line it up. And as that lever starts to swing, pull that tab over, and that'll be locked into place. All right, now you can mount your new screen. Simply lining it up with the 4 screw holes and putting your 7mm back in. All right, now we're ready for our radio module to go back in. All right, and you're gonna grab your connectors that you removed earlier. You'll plug those back in. To your radio module. And we can slide that back into place. All right, now it's time to plug in your new climate control cluster. So basically, the pass-through harness that you have here, that's supplied with your kit, you may need to modify it. So depending on your vehicle, this harness here may or may not have some protruding plastic pieces that won't line up with some grooves in here on your connector. So if you do have some plastic protruding in there, definitely take those, cut that off with some flush cuts or a razor blade. And lastly, this paddle right here will also need to be removed, so you can slide this in there. So to do that, you just lift up on either side with a little flathead, and you can pop that paddle completely off of there, and you're not going to need this anymore. And now your plug will fit in there. Make sure the wiring harness is aiming towards the center of your cluster. If it's aiming in the opposite direction, you have it going in the wrong way. All right, we'll take our bigger connection, plug that in, and now you want to make sure you stuff all of your excess wire. All right, now you want to make sure you take all your excess wire and push that underneath your radio module and get it tucked out of the way. And then you can slide your cluster back over and snap it back into place. All right, now with your radio bezel and climate control cluster snapped back in, we can reinstall our 7mm screws on the sides. All right, now we can go ahead and put our dash trim pieces back on. All right, now for your last step, you're gonna wanna program your Genie, or stick your Genie in there so you can program the ACM. Turn the vehicle on, stick in your Genie and wait for the green lights. All right, let's see if it works. All right, looks good.